Hello, my friends. Welcome to Bette Davis Eyes, the series where I try to watch and review absolutely every Bette Davis film on the way of my quest to becoming the most prolific reviewer of all time. Why? Because I love Bette Davis. I think that she's such a great actress. And in 1939, she came out with four films. I don't remember exactly which ones they were, but the film that I'm going to review is a recommendation from a viewer called The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. That's hard to say. And it's one of these things where it's kind of based on a real story, but not really. And the reason that is because Essex, what Lord Essex was a favorite of Queen Elizabeth's, but in the movie, uh, there's some sort of like there's a little bit of an age gap, maybe like 20 years age gap, but actually she was 63 and he was like in his 20s when this whole situation went down. And there's another big difference. So the basic plot of the movie is that Essex and Elizabeth, they love each other, but they have a lot of difficulties communicating with each other because she is the queen and he's very headstrong. And he goes to Spain and he wins a victory, but he kind of disobeyed her orders. So this is the first sign we see that he loves her, but maybe his ambition is a bit more than his love for her. Um, and then he gets sent to Ireland, and through the machinations of the court, Raleigh and Cecil and somebody else, they they prevent the letters coming from the Queen to her army in Ireland, which that's treason, but she doesn't find this out. And so she thinks he's not writing to her. He thinks she's not writing to him. And the movie suggests that that's the reason that this campaign failed in Ireland. And it's kind of putting the burden on her as being incompetent. But actually, what happened is that Essex was appointed the Lord Protector of England, of Ireland, sorry. And he was appointed to that position because he rose to fame through his exploits in Spain. And he got the ear of the Queen, and he was her favorite. But so he got appointed to the Lord Protectorship in Ireland, and this was during the 9 Years' War in Ireland. So you can see that it didn't last very short time, but a long time, and it didn't go very well for him, like in the movie. But it has nothing to do with the lack of communication between the Queen and him. It's more like he turned out not to be as great a commander as he thought he was. And actually, he deserted his post and he left the army in Ireland. He just left. And then he was involved in some conspiracy, like in the movie, and he was executed for treason. But it's hard to say whether he really was involved in a conspiracy because you know, if you want to get rid of your enemies at court, you kind of manufacture some things and the person gets dispensed with. So that's what really happened. He really was executed by her. And was it deserving? Maybe, maybe not. Well, I don't think anybody deserves to die. But from her point of view, from Queen Elizabeth's point of view, maybe it was deserving that he was executed. Now, let's talk about the movie because it stars Errol Flynn and Bette Davis. And as I said, there's not a huge age gap in the movie between them. There's a little bit of an age gap, but not as much as there was in real life. And also, I mean, in real life between the real people that this movie is based on. But the actors, Errol Flynn and Bette Davis, I think Bette Davis, either she was 1 year older than him or he was 1 year older than her, which is kind of crazy because his career was much shorter than hers was. Her career was like 50, 60 years or something like that. And I think that's due to, I don't know enough about Errol Flynn, but I know that he had a very troubled life and maybe that's why it wasn't as long. And I think I might be wrong, but I think this is the first movie I've ever seen with Errol Flynn in it. And he does a good job. He does a good job of portraying the kind of idiot that would get himself in that situation, who would assume that his love for the queen would make her forgive his ambition against her. But no, that wouldn't happen. And he's very insulting towards her, which is kind of realistic as to, I think, how people probably treated Queen Elizabeth in the beginning of her reign. But by the end, I don't think they treated her that way. I think that they figured out where their place was because she was a tyrant and she executed a lot of people like her father did. And the story behind the movie is a little bit crazy because it's based on a play called I forget what it was called, the Life of Queen Elizabeth or something. And Errol Flynn wanted the role. Well, first of all, Bette Davis wanted Laurence Olivier to have the role because she didn't think that Errol Flynn would take the role seriously enough. And when Errol Flynn got the role, she was very disappointed. But it turns out that later she was watching the movie with Olivia de Havilland because they're friends. They were friends, and Olivia de Havilland was in this movie and a lot of movies with Errol Flynn. And Bette Davis said, "Oh, he's not that bad. He's actually really good." But is that just because Olivia de Havilland had a lot of films with Errol Flynn? So I don't know, but she kind of changed her mind. And the position that she was coming from is that she was very determined to make this movie work. She shaved her head because she's only 30. She's at the peak of her professional career, like as an attractive Hollywood actress. She shaved her head, she shaved her eyebrows, she took an accent. She had like an accent coach to teach her the accent for this movie. And the accent is not great because Bette Davis was never very good at accents. But in this film, you can kind of compare and contrast this film from 1939 with a film from 1955 she was in called The Virgin Queen. And she uses the same accent, but she's more incomprehensible in that movie. But maybe I'll talk more about that movie in a moment. But yeah, she's completely comprehensible. You can understand what she's saying. And the character of the queen, as somebody who has all of this power and is actually a pretty good monarch and is still like in love with this guy and frustrated with this guy, it makes a lot of sense. And the fact that she is the daughter of Henry VIII, also a tyrant, the movie makes perfect sense. Her character portrayal is excellent. And she was nominated, like there was rumors that she was going to be nominated for an Oscar for this movie, but she was also nominated for Dark Victory, which I have seen, but I don't remember very well at this moment, unfortunately. That's what happens when you watch 30 or so Bette Davis movies. Yeah, but I think there's a review on my channel, but it's a Betty Davis movie, so probably I liked it, so you can check it out. Um, yeah, and Errol Flynn, as I said, does a yeah, and Errol Flynn, when they approached him to be in the movie, he wanted to change the movie to Essex and the Queen, and Betty Davis was like, "No, you can't do that because this is actually the story of the Queen. It's not his story." And I think she's right. You know, it is the Queen's story uh, because ultimately, who dies at the end? Essex dies because she's the queen, right? And she has this great line like my heart gets buried along with you, but I love England, and I don't think that you love England as much as I do. Because the reason she executes him is because, not just because of the treason, it's because he wouldn't make a good a king, right? Like that's what he wants. He wants to be king with her, but he is like so ambitious that he's gonna ruin the country. He's gonna get into pointless wars and stuff. So yeah, it's really really well done. I had something else that I wanted to say, but it escaped my mind. Yeah, anyway, Errol Flynn's performance, and like, it's good. It's really good. I don't think it's as good as Betty Davis's performance, but like, the surprising thing is, like, Betty Davis really worked on this accent, and I'm sure in 1939 that's what they thought Queen Elizabeth sounded like, and maybe she did really sound like that. I don't know. I don't know. It sounds a little bit weird to me, but anyway. But Errol Flynn actually was from, he was like an American Australian. I didn't know this about him. And his accent is Tasmanian. So he just has like a Tasmanian accent in this movie, which is which is quite odd because it sounds normal. It sounds fine. It doesn't sound like there's any problem with it. And it's also weird because they he talks to this Irish lord, Lord Tyrell, and Lord Tyrell is supposed to have an Irish accent, but he ends up sounding like he's from Brooklyn. So they got some Irish American guy from Brooklyn to come in. So that's that's wild. So I said earlier about um, the Virgin Queen, and I was comparing it with this movie. The weird thing is that actually in history, those two stories happened around the same time. But like if you take the two movies together, it seems like this is a story about young Queen Elizabeth when she was actually older when it happened, and the Virgin Queen is a story about older Queen Elizabeth. And Raleigh, Sir Walter Raleigh, is in both. And in the last one, he's more of a protagonist. And in this one, he's more of a just a throwaway character who gets laughed at by Essex. But the I think they both get executed, right? Yeah, they both get executed by Queen Elizabeth. So as I said, she's a tyrant, right? And she's a tyrant in an age where she needs to preserve her throne because they don't it's not a democracy, even though there's like a House of Lords and Parliament. It's not really a democracy. So she needs to, the only way that you can deal with this, like in a democracy, what happens theoretically is that people get angry about something, and then there's an election, and the people, they elect somebody to deal with that issue, and then that issue gets resolved. But in a tyrant, like in a tyrannical system, they have to kill people because there's no other way to change anything. So either you go with what the monarch wants or not. And if you don't go with the monarch wants, then you get executed with which is what happened to Sir Walter Raleigh and to Essex. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention though that I think is interesting, if you take these two movies as kind of like sequels, it kind of like sets up, because in this movie you really understand where Queen Elizabeth is coming from, and In the other movie, Queen Elizabeth seems more unhinged, right? She's gone, and I think that, like in my mind, it's because she's lost Essex, and Essex was the one that she loved, and I think that's how Bette Davis is playing that movie, right? She's playing that movie like 30, 20 years later, I guess it is, as a sequel to this movie she did in 1939. And it's remarkable how she's able just to step back in the role after 20 years. And it's also remarkable how she was able to perform the role of Queen Elizabeth in 1939 at like such a height of maturity when she was only 30 years old or something like that. And then when she's in her like late 50s, early 60s, to come back to the role and kind of also give the role like the gravitas that it deserves, you know? And also be like really, really unhinged, but also vulnerable, you know? So I think that's what makes Bette Davis a really great, made Bette Davis a really great actress. So yeah, thank you for the recommendation. Uh, if you like what I do, please give me a recommendation in the comments. I'm trying to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. I watch a lot of Bette Davis movies, but also other kinds of movies and television. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you thought about this movie, if you've seen it, and any other good Bette Davis movies that I haven't seen yet. And if you want to know if I have seen them or not, just go to my channel, The Leverton Review, and search. And then if it comes up, and if there's a video, I've probably seen it. And if there isn't a video, I haven't seen it. I'm trying to get to 20 subscribers by the end of June. Yeah, so I think that's possible. All right, thanks. Bye.